Holy One.
A great guy, and his videos are fantastic.
What's good, gamers and PC enthusiasts? Holy One here, coming at you with my review for the Radeon 7 50th Anniversary Gold Edition and how I fared using it this past week. So, the Radeon 7 is a beast of a card, and the 16 gigs of VRAM definitely help with 4K gaming for sure, and playing at 1440p with games that use high assets like Monster Hunter World or other games like, you know, the Rise of the Tomb Raiders, any games that use more VRAM. And the more VRAM you have, the less pop-in in games you will have, and the more options you'll have to play around with settings to tweak anything like that. Now, we'll start off this video with the intro for this system, that being, what's this thing running? As of course, some of you probably, if you have watching this, you don't know what the Radeon 7 is. It's rocking 1 terabyte of fast speed, 16 gigabytes of HBM2, which is great for video creating, streaming, video rendering, all that good stuff. It can do that. On top of that, the system also has a decent cooler. It's not too loud, but when you overclock it, it definitely gets, the fans definitely ramp up. So it's definitely a little quieter than a blower fan. And I'm going to show you guys on my screen how to overclock it, because I overclocked it and had a bunch of resets just to tweak it to the right point. And I was able to get 1950 megahertz at the most, but I decided to go with 1901 megahertz just as the sweet spot. And you guys can do these settings, and it'll make your system run a lot better, not just gaming, but everything all together. So what you guys are going to want to do is to go into the Radeon settings, go over to gaming, go over to global settings, and apply these settings to make your Radeon 7 run a lot better. Keep these like this, turn off morphic filtering, textures to be standard, override tessellation, and set it to the lowest is off. Keep this on, turn that off, keep that on, turn that off, and turn on HBM memory segment. This will make your computer run a lot smoother. Then if you guys are looking overclock, go over to Global Wattman. You can move this up and down. This does absolutely nothing, so leave it alone. So what you'll want to do is, if you have the better power limit than 750 watts, you can move this up to a 5. That's what I'd recommend. Then you have more fan curve you can play with. What it comes with standard is good enough. 1100 megahertz is the sweet spot for me. You don't really need to go any higher than that. And memory timing level 2 is the best to go with. And then overclocking, I just went with 901. All I did was type in 901. The voltage was right there, and I got a stable overclock on that right there. And as you guys will notice in Crash, if I go to system and graphics, as you can see, my VRAM is now increased exponentially thanks to the HBM memory configuration. So it goes from 16 to 24, and it gets that extra VRAM from my RAM pool. So I have 40 gigs of RAM, so it can pull from that if it needs more assets, but I doubt any game's going to use that much VRAM. Now, I'm going to show some graphs on the screen showing some comparisons between the Radeon 7 and the RTX 2080 Ti, the 2070, and some other cards. And I will not be showing the 2080 because the 2080 is a not 4K graphics card. The 2080 only has 8 gigs of VRAM, which is not enough for core 4K gaming. And let's be real, though, nobody bought a 2080 Ti for 4K gaming. Those who bought RTX 2080 are people who want to game either at 1440p like I did, or want to use ray tracing but don't want to spend exorbitant amount of money on the 2080 Ti. Those are the only people that bought that card. So there's no point in comparing a card that has half the VRAM. That is definitely a bit unfair, especially when there's titles that the Radeon 7 can compete with the RTX 2080 Ti and beat it in. So that's the reason it's not in my charts. Alright, now we're going to take a look at Ghost Recon Wildlands running on the Radeon 7, the RTX 2080 Ti, and of course the VII 64, the 2070. As you guys can see by the charts, the Radeon 7 overclocked is getting close by 10 frames to a $1,200 card, which is $500 more compared to its predecessor, the VII 64 at stock. So that's quite a huge jump, especially for 4K at very high settings. It's even outperforming the 1080 Ti. So Radeon at stock could definitely beat it there. And now we'll look at Far Cry 5. And as you guys can see, at 4K, the Radeon 7 is pulling just like 5 frames behind. And even the stock Radeon 7 is beating the snot out of the 1080 Ti. Moving up like 5 frame difference on Far Cry 5 itself. And if we look at Strange Brigade that uses Vulkan, the Radeon 7 overclocked is already 2 frames over the 2080 Ti, a $1,200 graphics card. And it's stomping the snot out of the 1080 Ti and the VII 64 way at the bottom down there, and the 2070. So, in Vulkan titles at 4K, the Radeon 7 will pull ahead of the 2080 Ti in Strange Brigade. And that's my overclock at 1950. I was able to get this puppy over the Strange Brigade. Well over 4K, 96 frames per second. Now, if we look at the Division 2, which I got with my Radeon 7 Gold Edition, it came with the bundled. The Radeon 7 overclocked to 1950 runs at 1440p, 126 frames per second, and decimates the 2080 Ti, a $1,200 graphics card. And this game, even the VII 64 overclocked, that puppy comes quite close to the 2080 Ti. So there was the results. If we look at the predecessor, which is the VII 64, the Radeon 7 overclocked to 1950 is 42% faster at 1440p speeds compared to the VII 64. Even at stock, it's 30% faster. So as you guys just saw the charts, the 2080 Ti is definitely got some competition with the Radeon 7 now that the drivers have been released for it and the system has only gotten better and better. Unlike these review tech sites that don't even bring up the specifications, they're like, oh, 6 months after Radeon 7's been out, 0 improvements have been made. Yeah, the Nvidia shills who will get paid off by Nvidia to say these things. Unlike them, I don't get paid whatsoever to do this. I am just a fan of the best performance I can get. And the Radeon 7 is definitely a compelling buy. It's basically the Threadripper of graphics cards. I use it for mining too. It is a beast at mining. My old 2080 RTX 2080 could probably mine around 60 hash. This beast can do like 100 plus hash rates. It's a lot higher, especially with that HBM2. That is great for definitely mining purposes. So if you guys want to make some money on the side, either pay off your graphics card, get some, mining deals here, the Radeon 7 is a beast to go. Now, as for the price tag, if we're comparing it to the 2080 Ti, it's pretty much almost neck and neck. After a couple more years, I'm sure the Radeon 7 is going to be on par with the 2080 Ti in newer games. As you guys saw in the charts, the Division 2 on the Radeon 7 stomps the 2080 Ti. Like it just stomps it, because let's be real, the reason it does is because the Division tool takes the memory pool it needs of 13 gigs of VRAM from the Radeon 7, which allows it to load in more assets and doesn't have to have, and it causes less pop-in in the game itself. So don't let these reviewers say, oh well, technically the RTX 2080 is good, most games don't need more than 8, and I'm like, they don't, true, but you're gonna have more poppin'. Wouldn't you want to pay $700 for a beast of a graphics card for mining purposes, multitasking, mining purposes, all sorts of things, content creation? Like, the content creation for this card is amazing. And gaming performance, if you guys are looking to upgrade to the 3800X, which has single threaded performance equal to a 9900K, and you pair it up with the Radeon 7, your performance is going to be crazy. But I'm pretty satisfied with my 2700X. So this is going to be my review for the card, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This is your boy Holy One, out.